Greg Chick, Ramona's Plumber here at DIYPlumbingAdvice.com. Today we're going to talk about replacing a garbage disposal. There's a couple things you need to consider before buying your new disposal. One of them is the coupling type. That is the coupling, the sink joint coupling that joins the disposal to the sink. If you want less work, get a new disposal that uses the same coupling type and you don't have to do that work. If you get the other type, you'll just have to read the instructions on how to put it in. Today we're going to remove this type and we're going to put in this type so you get to see a little bit of both. Another issue is the pigtail. Whether or not your disposal uses a plug-in pigtail or if it uses a hard wire from the wall straight into the bottom of the disposal. If what you have is hardwired, you're pretty much going to have to go with hardwired. So the disposal you buy, if it comes with a pigtail, you'll just have to pull it off and hardwire it where the pigtail went. If you have an existing pigtail, life is easy. Unplug the old one, plug in the new one. The other issue is the distance that the disposal discharges from the outlet to straight down. Some of them have a different distance. If you look at the one on the right, it sticks out a little further. So you have to consider that, especially if your plumbing under the sink is solvent joined and rigid. If it's flexible or adjustable with slip joints, you've got a little give. Another issue is horsepower versus RPM. A 20 horse disposal wouldn't do any better than a half horse. It's the RPM that splats the food on the wall that really does the job. However, there are some disposals that are 3/4 horse instead of half, and they just generally go with a better made machine, and some of those machines have auto reversing, and that's a perk, but not necessary. Half horse is fine. The higher the RPM, in my experience, the less often food blocks up. It splats the food better. There are no blades in a garbage disposal, by the way. It's all due to velocity. Then there's the issue of stainless steel. Not one piece or two piece, but all three members of the grinding chamber need to be stainless. So if it says stainless, you want to see that it's a stainless plate, stainless wall, and stainless clubs, or what people think are blades. Another issue is warranty. 1 year warranty is pretty much minimal, and that would basically mean the machine is pretty cheap and it might not last that long. 5 years is a good warranty to get, but whether or not it's over the counter or under the counter, pun intended. If it's under the counter, that means they come, take care of it, you don't pull it out. If it's over the counter, you've got to do all that work. So make sure you know what you're getting there. Like I said, the extra perks are the auto reversing, but mostly you just want to stick with a sink joint coupling that's the same as yours if you want a quick and easy install. Let's take a look at the two different types of sink joint couplings and what you have to do to disconnect them and to reconnect them. Look at this. This is the Emerson electric one. It sits through the sink, and this is what you see down on the bottom. It tightens up with these 3 screws, which you have to slowly rotationally tighten when you tighten it. And to disconnect this thing, you have to know the magic trick of, on the bottom side, you have to push this ring that is stuck inside a groove on the bottom down there. And if you don't do that ring, you're not getting this coupling off of there. And if it's not put on in the groove, the sink joint coupling will not tighten up. So when you push this through the top, you put your putty there, you put it through the sinkhole, you put that piece up, you put this on, put your clip on, and then you tighten the 3 screws evenly. You do a little here, a little here, a little here, and you go around. And this sink joint coupler is got a little bit of a problem because when you're joining the disposal to it, you've got to connect to this little inclined plane here. You got to connect 3 tabs that are on the disposal to these 3 points. All 3 have to be hooked up, and then you rotate the disposal and it binds the disposal to this coupler. That's the Emerson. For the Anaheim, it's a little easier to take off and to put on because you have just 2 points to line up and then a little twist. But this one locks on with, instead of a steel ring, it locks on with a rubber ring. To join the coupler to the sink basin, you put this through the top, you put your putty up here, you put this nut on from the bottom, you tighten it down, and then you push this piece up into here, and instead of the steel ring on the Emerson, you use the rubber seal on the Anaheim. And then once this rubber seal clips into the groove there, and this thing slides down, then you have not only a locked on, boy, that's not working as easy. There you go. Then you have a coupling that joins the disposal to the coupling. So those are the two different types. To make life easier, I'm going to take the door off. Works fine. First, we're going to remove the 7/8" hose from the air gap that comes for the dishwasher drain. Almost always it's a 5/16 nut driver. Disconnect the hose clamp. Sometimes this hose is tough to get off, and sometimes some muck comes out of here. No muck. We're good to go on that. Now we're going to disconnect the discharge of the unit. That's a 3/8 nut or bolt. There's two of them on either side of a flange. Unfortunately, this one is on the back side. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're on the front side. Now there's a second one over here. Can't really see it, but you know it's there. And that's why you really want to know it's a 3/8 nut driver, because you don't want to be trying to use a screwdriver on that or a crescent, because they can be tight. And this flange can pop off of here, and then the waistline can break loose. There's a rubber gasket that comes loose. That's the amount of play we have in our discharge. And then the next, we take the sink joint coupler and we can put a screwdriver in one of those rings and go like this and get ready for it to drop, and it just drops down into your pan. And then you've got your sink joint coupler left, which is still tight, and you take, this one is using a little square drive or a Torx drive. You loosen the screws. There's 3 of these on the Emerson. Usually once one screw comes loose, the other screws are really easy. Now we got those screws loose, we can get that magic ring, that clip, that metal clip that goes into a groove. What you do is you can use the ring body, or the body of the joint coupling, to pry against. You see how that ring was right up there in that groove? You just kind of pry the ring off, and voila, the bottom of the coupler comes off. This just pushes up through the hole, and you're good to go. If you have a garbage disposal that receives waste from your dishwasher, you need to knock the plug out that's in there. To do that, you take a screwdriver or a punch. I'm using a socket wrench. Bingo. You can use a hammer if you want, but now inside, the plug has been pushed inside, and there it is removed. You need to do that before you put the disposal in. Now for the discharge elbow of the disposal. I'm going to reuse the one that was in there because it's already cut to shape. So I'm going to take the old gasket out, put the new gasket in, and then push the old pre-cut elbow to the disposal, put in those 2 new screws that came with it, the 3/8 bolts with that new gasket, and I'm going to tighten them down and drop the elbow onto the waste pipe under the sink. Here's how the sink joint coupler is going to meet with the disposal. Underneath, it's going to push up that little notch in there. You turn that, tight joint, you're done. Now for the sink joint coupling to go in. It'll come like this, you spin the nut off. There's a friction washer here, which is essential to keep the nut from spinning the basket. And they come with a little rubber gasket that they say will work instead of putty between the sink and the coupler. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use putty. I find it to work every time, and I've seen the rubber leak. So you warm up your putty with your hands. You make a little rope. You put that rope around the base. You form it in there. One of the very rare uses for plumber's putty. And that's what you need for that. Now that we're ready to put the putty and the coupler in there, we have to make sure this surface is clean. Paper towel, a little dish scrubber, get it nice and dry and clean. And then you push your new flange down through the hole and line your letters up if that matters to you, just like that. Now we're going to put the nut on from the bottom. I'm going to take that rubber gasket and put it on the bottom, but the most important part is the friction washer that faces with the spinning nut. That goes up there, and what's going to happen? The nut's going to push all the putty out, the top and bottom. You might want to check this tension, tighten it up half an hour after you do the job, and you might get another turn out of it to push out all the excess putty out of the top to make sure it's real tight. This here wants to be good and tight. See, I'm working it. And I'll even tighten that a little bit more later. I'm going to put on this joint from the bottom here looking up. It helps me see the rubber groove. There we can see that gasket is completely in there when I turn it. It doesn't jump off the track or anything, completely on there well. Now we're going to push the disposal up into the coupler. This little notch here is going to go into this little receiver of the notch, like that, and this thing's going to spin and lock it on. But first I'm going to drop the discharge tube into the drain pipe, swing the unit over, line it up, drop the coupler nut onto the little prongs, or the little bumps on the thing, and then both of the notches have to be in the thing, and then you tighten the coupler and you make sure that it's connected on both sides. As long as it's connected on both sides, you got your waistline in, you can tighten your slip joint nut. Okay. And There you go. Now we're going to plug it into the top outlet that's switched. There you go. Now we just trim off the putty. And it's okay if a little bit of that putty comes out of there tomorrow. You might want to, if it does, you might want to check your nut underneath and see if it's tight. Then you take your sound guard and push in from the top. You can push it all the way down if you like. And then we flip the switch. The sound of success. Next, we fill the basin, or at least half full, with water. We put the stopper in, turn the water on, get a volume of water in there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pull the stopper, flip the switch, and we're going to look at the disposal and see if under a load there's any leaks. We've got a volume of water, a good volume of water, then we're going to pull the stopper and flip the switch and look at to see if there's any leaks. $2,600 RPM. Success.
That wraps up our garbage disposal installation. For more information, including important tips on garbage disposal use, go to DIYPlumbingadvice.com. Can you do it? Yes, you can, and I can help. Thanks for watching.